Oh, 12 o'clock on your Monday afternoon. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you. No Bill Gunner today. We'll get the whole family back in here tomorrow. Captain Dave, myself, Bill, and get the new year started off properly for the halftime show. But today, as always, our guy Scott Hamilton, happy to fill in for the next couple of hours. Scott, how we doing, man? Happy New Year. Hope the Christmas holidays were good to you as well.
It was a fantastic stretch of holidays, fantastic stretch of college football, and even a hellacious day of NFL yesterday.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that was I don't think you could have scripted a better final day of the NFL regular season, right down to quite literally the last play with the Ravens missing the field goal to lose to the Steelers for the AFC North in the last spot in the playoffs.
I full disclosure, I'm a lifelong Steelers fan. I'm dragging a little today because I stayed up for that, but
Okay.
It was worth every daggone minute. I never in my wildest dreams. I mean, I've seen that rivalry played out, gosh, ever since the Ravens came into existence. I've never expected to see something like that. It was a playoff game for the playoffs.
It was.
And it was absolutely perfect.
No, the NFL, I think with their flex scheduling, has done a really good job of ensuring that Sunday night slot every single year for the last weekend of the regular season is a game that has the highest stakes. And most of the playoff spots have been decided. You had the weird thing with the Panthers having to wait for the Falcons to beat the Saints and all that. But yeah, for a true winner-take-all final spot in the playoffs, that's what you got last night on Sunday Night Football. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that too. Just from a pure entertainment standpoint, didn't care who won, though now maybe the Ravens will fire John Harbaugh and the Falcons will hire him. So maybe I'm holding out hope on that.
You know that, but even though it was weird with the Panthers having to wait it out, that was another win for the NFL because it made that Falcons Saints game extremely relevant. They got two whole sets of eyeballs on it. They got the people in Tampa, and they got the people in Charlotte watching it.
Yep, I can't imagine there were too many people outside of that game's meeting that were dying to watch Falcons Saints play each other. And look, I'm a diehard Falcons fan. That rivalry has not meant anything since Drew Brees and Matt Ryan were slinging the pill against each other. It's just not the same anymore.
You see, and here's where I'm wrong. And again, you can help me. You grew up there. I covered the Panthers for a long time, and I always felt like the Panthers-Falcons was a bigger rivalry. I didn't realize the Falcons-Saints was a bigger rivalry. Am I reading it wrong, or was it maybe just a snapshot in time where the Falcons and Panthers were a bigger rivalry?
What was the period of time you were covering the Panthers?
It was around we'll even go before that. It was around like 06 to 2016.
Okay.
D'Angelo Hall and Steve Smith going at it.
Yeah, I would still say the Saints rivalry ticked up after the Katrina game. Right, and that was a great moment for the Saints with the block punt and all that kind of stuff, what that meant to the city, returning to the Superdome. And ever since there, it's kind of had a blood feudness to it. I think during the prime Cam years, then the Falcons-Panthers rivalry was kind of right up there with them. But I would still say most Falcons fans would view the Saints as the more hated team out of the divisional rivals.
I just knew I hated to the Georgia Dome, man.
You hated the Georgia Dome?
I hated going.
I love the Georgia Dome. The Georgia Dome. The Georgia Dome to me. Can I throw a hot take out there really quick?
Sure.
I think it was the perfect neutral site venue for college football. And look, I'm pro home environments till the cows come home. I would much rather see a game at Williams-Brice Stadium than Mercedes-Benz or Santa Clara or Jerry World or wherever. But I think for the SEC championship, for the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, the Georgia Dome had an aesthetic that was unmatched.
That is a scorching hot take. That place was, okay. My first experience in the Georgia Dome was actually the ACC basketball tournament.
Okay, yes, they hosted a lot of basketball too.
It sucked so bad. And then
maybe not the best basketball venue.
My first bowl game, I covered a Peach Bowl there. It was Auburn and North Carolina. Ronald Curry was the quarterback. And I was just like, And then when I started having to go once a year with the Panthers, I was just like, man, this place. Now, I love Mercedes-Benz. I got lost in it this year after the Virginia Tech game.
It's big. There's a lot of bells and whistles and hallways and elevators and things that lead to places that you don't know. So we tried getting out of there in a concert earlier on this year, too, and we looped around a couple times before we figured out where we were at.
Well, I got lost where all the bread is. There's like all this bread.
Yeah.
Thousands of loaves of buns and stuff, and I'm down, on the very base level. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just trying to get back to media seating, and I'm walking through these like 10-foot high stacks of bread. And this went on forever, Tyler. It went on forever.
Yeah.
It was like Narnia.
Sounds like a dream come
I would
true.
go in one door, come out another.
Yeah, no, I love bread. That sounds like a situation I'd love to find myself in.
Anyway, it's a wonderful environment. But the Panthers to be going to the playoff. It's been 10 years since that magical season of 2015. It's been 8 years since going to the playoffs, 2017.
Yep.
A lot's happened to that franchise since then. New ownership, new coach, multiple coaches, and even more quarterbacks. They seem to finally have some stability. And even if they got in with a subpar record, they still got in. I remember the 2014 team got in with, I believe they were 7-9 maybe.
Yeah.
7-8.
I think it came down to Falcons and Saints on the last game for that one, because in true NFC South fashion, it was a team with a losing record winning the division as that happened once again. But yeah, shout out to the Panthers. Dave Canales, first time making his head coach. Obviously, Bryce Young has done a really good job with getting him rebuilt and everything, and we'll talk more about that as the show goes along. I do need to apologize first off for my voice. I've been sick for about the past week, so I've not been smoking multiple packs of cigarettes, contrary to popular belief. So bear with me today. We'll allow Scott to yap more than usual to fill in some of the space. How about that?
I hope your lawyers are on retainer, just in case.
I have a dump button, so if you go too far off the rails, I can just hit that and we can get things back on track. How about that?
Okay, fair enough. I won't bring up like Venezuela or anything.
Yeah, please don't. No, we try and steer away from politics as much as possible. This is an escape for people, Scott. We have to remember that.
Okay. But I feel bad for you, dude. I really feel bad for you. Okay. Hey, by the way, how many days did you work over the holiday break, though? Between Christmas and New Year's, you worked the whole week, didn't you?
No, I did not. We were off for the past basically 2 weeks.
Really?
Yes. Well, that's benefit of South Carolina not going to a bowl game. So, yes, this is my first time back in basically 2 weeks. And here's the thing. I don't get sick. Like, I never get sick, ever. And last week, because we stayed from the Tuesday before Christmas, the 22nd, I guess that was, 23rd, whatever, through last Sunday on the 28th, I guess. And then we come home, I wake up on the 29th, and my throat hurts. Now, I feel the best I have in a week, but the voice still ain't there yet. I did try the whiskey with honey and lemon. My mom recommended that.
Oh, yeah.
That did help some, so may have to hit that again today.
Did you put some Dr. Pepper with it?
I did not. Does that help?
Well, it tastes good.
Okay. I may have to make a stop on the way home and get some Dr. Pepper then.
And you should do that before you come on the air.
Well, I didn't have time.
You should have a lot of it before you come on the air.
I'm halfway home. I'm 3 hours in, so only 2 hours and 52 minutes to go.
Where's Terry Ford?
Somewhere in the building. I think he's upstairs.
He has a couch in his office, right?
Not a couch. There's a couch in the area outside of his office.
I have thoughts.
I will say, I got to give a shout out to our guy, Ed Bird, who left me a pile of cough drops after producing from 9 to noon, because I've been popping those like crazy to help me get through these next couple hours.
God bless Ed. God bless Ed. You know, there's a lot of stuff going along, and we're not talking sports at all, and I apologize. I'll blame myself. But I want to say there's like measles outbreaks and things like that going on. There's flu.
It's cold, and then it's going to be warm, and then it's cold again. The weather doesn't know what it wants to do, and this is just par for the course. So I'll be fine. Just apologize for not sounding as efficient as I usually do when it comes to my voice.
So can we talk about climate change now?
Let's not.
What about the Department of Health?
Let's not.
What about South Carolina getting some new assistant coaches?
You know what?
A bunch of names coming back.
That sounds more up the alley of what we should be talking about. Scott, we will give you your own podcast to rant about everything that's bugging you in the world. How about that? We'll call it Scott Hamilton versus the world.
No, I don't think so. I'm the least political person you will ever meet, honestly.
Well, it doesn't have to be political. It can be about anything. You can rant about whatever you want. If you I don't know, if you went to the store and they didn't have the cheese you wanted, you can rant about that.
I like a good sharp cheddar from Wisconsin.
Okay, that's fine. Rant about it. Anyways, we will get into those staff changes for South Carolina and the way they went down coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Ed and Scott Hamilton on your Monday on the Game. Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton along with you here on your Monday on the Game, reacting to everything that went down over the past couple weeks in Gamecock sports. A lot of names going into the portal, starting to get some names out of the portal, but perhaps the most interesting headline was the one of another coach departure. This one being Sterling Lucas, who has left South Carolina to take the job at LSU under Lane Kiffin's first staff there down in Baton Rouge. And according to Shane Beamer, the way this went down isn't exactly par for the course for how these things are usually supposed to go. And when introducing new coach the other day, Deion Barnes, here's what he had to say.
Certainly happened fast, as you guys know. Got a call on a Thursday night after 11 p.m. from the previous coach that was here, telling me that he had been offered a job at another school, and by 9 a.m. the next morning, he was gone. A little bit unusual. Usually you get a phone call from the head coach of the school kind of giving you a heads up that he's interested in maybe talking to one of your coaches or things like that. That didn't happen, which, again, there's no rule that has to happen, but, you know, it's kind of an unspoken rule. So didn't hear anything from the other school, didn't hear anything from the previous coach until he called to tell me that he had been offered a job. So it wasn't a very thorough interview process where you have a few days to kind of plan and think this might be coming down the track. It happened.
Are we surprised, Scott, that Lane Kiffin has broken an unwritten rule among coaches?
Joey Freshwater strikes again. This was this guy has no boundaries now. He's full heel.
Oh, totally.
He's full heel. And this might seem like a inconsequential thing, an assistant coach, you know, going and changing, and they didn't go through this unspoken protocol and all that, and I get it. But it's not. It's not, man. I mean, we're in January. This happened right before Christmas. This is peak time. They probably have a meeting as a team probably into this week. Probably around the 9th or 10th, they're going to have their first meeting of the 2026 team. And for this to happen, when it happened, the way it happened, I think is absolutely appalling. I'll use that word. And it just makes us more and more root for Ole Miss in these playoffs. That's all I'll say, man.
That is, and we'll get more into the playoffs specifically a little bit later on the show. Ralph Russo of The Athletic going to join us at 1:30, by the way. But, do you want to see Ole Miss go all the way because you think it's going to, bug Lane Kiffin, or does them losing, hurt him more? Where's that balance?
Well, if they win, he gets paid more.
That's true. He's already gotten paid for the 2 wins.
Yeah, I got $500,000. But the money's inconsequential at this point. I don't think he saw it going this far. I think he knew he had a good team, but I didn't think. I mean, why would you leave to go try to win a championship somewhere else if you can already win one where you are?
His logic is the resources are more sustainable.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't either, but that's his reasoning.
All I know is this. I want Pete Golding to win, and I don't know. I mean, would Pete Golding have gone to LSU if they hadn't offered him the head coaching job? I don't know.
Maybe.
We don't know that. Has anybody asked him that?
I don't think so. Because I think they worked so quickly that conversation, because he was basically hired as head coach before Lane Kiffin was gone, essentially.
Yeah, they had to. They had to, because otherwise they're going to be at disarray. You don't want to go into the college football playoff with an interim head coach.
No, not ideal.
Even if he's not your guy, he's going to be your coach.
Right.
But for the players, I mean, especially when it came out how Kiffin had, we'll just say lied, that the players were all overwhelmingly in favor of him coaching them through the playoffs, and that turned out to be BS.
Right.
And they called him out on his BS. I want those guys to win. Now, I want them to win, but if they don't, I won't be devastated. I mean, I'm good with any of these teams, honestly, in this final four.
Yeah. Getting back to the task at hand with Sterling Lucas and everything, I think it goes without saying that Lucas has been Beamer's best assistant, not only from the recruiting standpoint, but obviously the development standpoint and what this edge room has been able to do the past couple of years. And of course, everybody immediately starts panicking when it comes to losing Sterling Lucas. Like, oh, my God, Dylan Stewart's going to go to LSU now. And give credit where it's due. They were able to retain Dylan Stewart. And that's a guy, he's not from this state, didn't grow up a South Carolina fan. It would have made all the sense in the world if he would have followed Sterling Lucas to LSU for likely a really big payday, but he stayed. So that concern was alleviated pretty quickly.
It was, and I think that speaks volumes on a couple of different levels. It speaks volumes for the relationship that Shane Beamer has built, and Clayton, with these players. But also, I think it speaks volumes about the investment that people around the program are putting into football. He's not going to leave unless he's getting paid, or he's not going to stay unless he's getting paid. And I have to think that maybe he got a raise, he got a bump in his NIL money. So they stepped up and did what they had to do. So I think it says a lot for him to stick around. The problem is, are they going to be able to get more of the Dylan Stewart from last year or the Dylan Stewart from this past season?
Yeah, and look, Stewart obviously commanded a lot of attention this past year. You didn't have a Kyle Kennard necessarily, the side. Brian Thomas Jr. played really well. But I think Brian Thomas Jr. was one of the MVPs of the defense, for sure. I don't see him getting drafted as high as Kennard was. He didn't win the Nagurski Award or anything like that. So, what kind of help can he have around him, I think is going to be the biggest question. And we'll get into Deion Barnes here coming up in a minute. But going back to, because this isn't the first time that Lane Kiffin has messed with South Carolina. You go back to the Juice Wells recruitment out of the portal a couple years ago. Because South Carolina doesn't have a primary rival in the SEC. Georgia's probably the closest to it. They're back on the schedule every single year. But, from the Lane Kiffin standpoint, and when you add in what happened 2 years ago with the controversy of losing the LSU game here and all that, LSU is really climbing the boards of one of the most hated teams here locally.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And it's just so funny. Did you see the picture of Kiffin and Kim Mulkey?
Yes, I did, walking hand in hand. So here's the thing. Kiffin, there was smoke out there that Kiffin wanted to be a part of the Sugar Bowl broadcast on New Year's Day, where he'd be up in the booth with McElroy and McDonough, I guess it was, and, talk about how much he loves that team and why the decision was right to go with LSU and all that crap. That got shot down, much like his appearance on game day for the SEC championship. And instead he goes to LSU's home game and stands hand. How both their egos fit through that tunnel, I will never know.
I could hear the Imperial March from Darth Vader, kind of, or some other, name a notorious couple in the history. Is it like Bonnie and Clyde? I think it's a little more dire than that.
Bonnie and Clyde's the most extreme example.
Who were the French people, the aristocrats that were executing everybody with the guillotine?
Oh, I like
Marie
history.
Antoinette or something.
I can't answer that one for you.
See, though, I was just sitting there thinking, man, that's two peas in a pod. They can learn a lot from each other.
It's the question of which one do you trust the least, right? And that's a tough question.
And then they went out, and I'm sure he gave Full Wiley a high five.
Oh, sure,
or something.
I didn't even check. Did he take a picture with Malaysia Full Wiley just to fan the flames of this whole thing?
I'll Google it during the break.
He probably did.
That's a good call.
He probably did. But
though, I wrote a column last year though, and we're chasing rabbits, and then you can reel it back in. But I am of the belief that Kim Mulkey is the best thing about women's college basketball because it needs that interesting heel.
Oh, she's a phenomenal villain that is very easy to hate if you're living outside of Baton Rouge. I don't if you look at Carolina's game against them coming up here in a couple weeks, it's prime time on ABC on a Saturday night at 8:30. This prints money, right? Every sport needs its villain, and LSU's got quite a few of them.
And it also helps, when you're going opposite an all-time great.
Yes.
Like Dawn. And you put those two together. But I remember her trip to Columbia last year, just the theater around it and how she doesn't make her interest until the strength coach goes. Everybody else is out on the floor, and the strength coach goes and makes a look. Then he signals to the tunnel for her to come on, and here she comes marching in, like Darth Vader and pumps.
With the outfits and the tassels, you can't convince me Kim Mulkey was not a huge Macho Man Randy Savage fan growing up.
But if she were coaching your team, would you root for her?
Oh, sure. She's coaching my team, absolutely. And everything she's doing great. I think for a lot of people outside the bubble of Columbia, they probably hate Dawn Staley, and not that she's as, flamboyant and flashy as Kim Mulkey is, but I think she's disliked by a lot of people outside of this bubble because of how good she is.
Yeah. It's anywhere. People hated Michael Jordan. People hated Jeff Gordon.
Jeff
Gordon is...
Yeah. Hey, listen, you're talking to the kid that was the Jeff Gordon fan in the mid 2000s in elementary school getting picked on every day. I know
Getting
very
beat
well
up
how
every
much
day.
people hate success.
The Dale Jr. fans were pummeling on you, man. The Dale Senior fans were really pummeling on you.
Listen, I've lived that life. I know it very well. But and again, going back to the main point of Lane Kiffin poaching Sterling Lucas, he didn't do anything wrong. There's no NCAA violation of like, you broke this rule, we're going to penalize you for it. But again, within coaches, it is that common courtesy thing of like, hey, I'm talking to your guy. This might be happening, just to give them some kind of indication of what's happening. And I imagine Lane and Shane aren't the best of buddies anyway, but I don't think they're going to be sending each other Christmas cards anytime soon.
Well, it's no different than running up to score.
Sure.
It's no different than passing when you're up 40 points. I mean, it's an unwritten rule. You have to acknowledge it, dude. It's like showing up a pitcher in baseball when you hit a home run. Now, what does Shane do to retaliate? He's got to do something.
Yeah.
He can't let this happen because he's, hey, poaching my guys.
We'll see. I don't know. Is there anybody from LSU who can? Well, they got DJ Chester out of the portal that's visiting this week. So I don't know if he commits here, maybe you do something with that. I don't know.
They have to send somebody down to talk to Lane's girlfriend or something. Steal his girlfriend.
Or girlfriends, plural. Don't forget the S. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure Joey Freshwater's having a good time in Baton Rouge already. Does he have a hot yoga studio yet?
Did you see about that?
No.
The truth coming out about how he was in the hot yoga?
The truth in Oxford that he was showing up late and it was more of a photo op than anything else.
Goofing around. And then the dog. Did we ever get confirmation if the dog was his?
I think the dog belonged to the school.
Wow.
And has the dog account tweeted since he left?
Did the dog have a buyout?
A lot of milk bones. A lot of milk bones.
That whole deal, man. It's just so gross.
But
it's gross.
It's so college football, though. And it's so Lane Kiffin.
He got a documentary, Tyler.
Yeah, well,
how he turned his life around.
And here's the funny thing. I mentioned this to Terry earlier. We got the fluff piece about how much he loved Oxford before he left Oxford. Yeah. We're going to get one in Baton Rouge in a couple years before he leaves for Tuscaloosa. You know that, right?
Yeah, back to the NFL.
I think he's going to go to Tuscaloosa first.
You think? I think they're smarter than that in Tuscaloosa.
Lane Kiffin is made for college football.
I think he wants to go to the NFL. The NFL's next. NFL's next.
We'll place a
his dad made his bones.
We'll place a wager on that. How about that?
Okay, that's fair. I'll take that.
We'll get into the hire that's replacing Sterling Lucas on the other side and what Coach Beamer as well as Coach Barnes had to say on Friday. Coming up next, it is the Extra Point. No, it's the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton on your Monday on the Game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Tilly's Warehouse. First wine and spirit store at 5 Points in the past 20 years. Tell you about it all the time, but I'm happy to remind you, if you need anything for a fun night, a fun weekend, party, whatever it may be, Tilly's has got you covered. Located on Green Street, right behind the Salty Nut Cafe in the old Pavlov's building. It's easy to get in and out of, and they've got everything that you need. Need things like surf sides or Cutwaters? They got those. Need things like the Garden Black GT Vodka? They've got that as well. Mention that you heard this out on 107.5, and you can also get 10% off any wine selection as well over there at Tilly's Warehouse. Be sure to stay connected with them on Instagram and Facebook and visit their website, tillyswarehouse.com, for more information and discover why Tilly's is your new must-visit spot over in 5 Points. And welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton along with you here on your Monday on the Game. Talking all things Carolina football that's transpired over the past couple weeks, and with Sterling Lucas exiting to go to LSU, we still don't have details of that contract, by the way. I looked yesterday, and I haven't seen a salary or anything. I'm assuming he left for more money. You don't leave a place like South Carolina to go make less. So he's making more. I just don't know what it is yet.
Well, and does it go back to the earlier point about Kiffin with the resources? You know, you go there, you're going to have more opportunities to really cook, to get noticed, to move up the food chain, yada, 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 win a championship. I mean, is that part of the overall pie? Hey, it can be. It says a lot when you put on your resume on the staff that won blah, blah, blah championship.
That is very true. So we'll see what further details emerge of that. Either way, he's, I mentioned earlier, he's now getting the previous coach moniker, like Sterling Lucas. Did you read the Harry Potter books? You're familiar with Lord Voldemort?
Yeah, I hate to admit that. Yeah, I know who that is.
He's
got no mouth.
Oh, he's got no nose.
Oh, yeah, same thing.
Yeah, but like when a coach leaves, especially that way, they get the previous coach. The name Sterling Lucas will not be spoken, I don't think, any in the Beamer era going forward.
You see, that's your generation. You're comparing it to Harry Potter. I would compare it to the Ten Commandments. May the name of Moses be stricken from every.
That works too.
So let it be written.
That works as well.
Shane's doing that now.
So he not going to talk about Sterling Lucas specifically anymore as Deion Barnes comes in from Penn State. Here's Coach Beamer on Friday detailing the hiring of Coach Barnes.
How impressed he was with him, and then immediately I know the name of Deion. I did not know Deion personally, knew the name, and you start looking at where he's been, his story, his background as a player, highly recruited coming out of high school, recruited by South Carolina. Made the mistake. He didn't choose here, but we got him back here finally, the way it works out. But then went to Penn State, was a Big Ten Freshman of the Year. He played the position that he's now coaching, played in the NFL. So you talk about pro experience at the position. And then you look at what he's done in coaching, working his way up at Penn State, and what he's been able to accomplish at Penn State, the great players that he's not only recruited, but the great players that he's coached and developed at that place. It was a slam dunk. So Clayton and I jumped on a Zoom with Deion. Again, he and I talked about a lot of people throughout the process, but as soon as we got off the Zoom, I immediately called Clayton, and we both agreed there really wasn't much reason to talk to many other people.
So they made quick work of it. I think an underrated aspect of this, as Beamer touched on, Deion Barnes is from Pennsylvania. He played at Penn State. His entire coaching career as a GA and then eventually as a defensive end coach has been at Penn State. Prying him away wasn't easy. Like, that's a guy that you would think would want to stick around, maybe elevate himself to a DC, if not a head coach, at some point in the future. So prying a guy like that away from his alma mater, that's not easy, and they were able to do that, again, in pretty short order.
But was he guaranteed a spot on Matt Campbell's staff?
That is a good question that we do not know. Because, again, he had come back as a GA in 2020 under James Franklin. I can't remember how many guys Matt Campbell had hired up to that point. So that is a good question to ask. But I'm sure if he really, really wanted to stay and Matt Campbell's given the opportunity, that would be very enticing. But we don't quite know the answer to that.
See, I look at it as this is an opportunity, elevate my profile, get into the SEC at a higher profile, not just the Big Ten, because we don't really know what Penn State's place is going to be in the Big Ten for a while. I mean, Matt Campbell, I think, is a pretty good coach in the portal. I mean, Kurt Cignetti has proven.
Yeah, listen, it can happen to anyone.
It can happen anywhere. But to go to the SEC and just show a more diverse and robust body of work on your resume, that's a compelling opportunity. And again, probably a race.
Yeah, and I think because Dylan Stewart returning was confirmed pretty quickly after the Deion Barnes hire was made. So I'm sure there was that, hey, you're going to come here and coach Dylan Stewart, again, one of the best pass rushers in the entire country in 2026. I imagine that probably helped get over the hump a little bit if there was one.
Yeah, having that to work with. I wonder this. I wonder if they ran it by Dylan Stewart.
I'm sure when you're that high profile of a player, you're at least asked about it, right? Like, hey, because look, Sterling recruited him, and Dylan Stewart's not a South Carolina guy. He's not from the state. Didn't grow up a Carolina fan. He doesn't have the allegiance to this school that may keep other guys around. That was his guy that left for LSU, and LSU school that I'm sure offered him a buttload of money to come there themselves. It's like, okay, your guy's gone. Who do you want? Or, hey, we got this guy. What do you think? And I'm sure that was a part of the process.
See, again, we've got this one portal period, which I'm all for, but they haven't thought it all out. They
never think everything out.
They don't. And I can't say I would either, because there's so many things that pop up we don't anticipate. There's so many complexities. But this one portal period, Tyler, think about this. It opens on what, January 2nd?
Yep.
And it closes on the 16th.
Yeah, something like that. Now you can still get guys out of the portal after the fact, but your name entering the portal has to be in that window.
So you're expected to put your name in a portal, visit schools, apply to schools, make a decision, find housing, get moved, and get situated in the course of 15 days before school actually starts. Because don't forget about school. School's, actually a part of the equation, allegedly.
Oh, a famous quarterback once said, "We didn't come to play school, Scott."
Well, this is true. But I find
that guy won a national championship.
It's the tampering that's going on. Basically, you announce in December, I'm going to enter the portal, and it's just a free for all.
Yeah.
Everything's decided in December, and the only reason we don't have more announcements now is because the big announcement that'll tumble all the dominoes per position has yet to come out. Who's going to be the quarterback? Okay, was it Sorsby, I believe, out of Cincinnati? He's the most coveted guy in the portal.
He's going to Texas Tech. That was confirmed earlier.
So it's
today.
done.
It's done.
Okay, there you go.
By the way, $5 million to Texas Tech.
$5 million. The quarterback from Cincinnati.
Quarterback from Cincinnati is going to get paid $5 million to go to Texas Tech, and apparently he had his last communication was with Patrick Mahomes, and he told him, "Hey, I'm going to Texas Tech."
And I wonder if Patrick Mahomes kicked in.
I'm sure he did.
Scott Satterfield, what is he dealing with right now at Cincinnati? One-time South Carolina coaching prospect.
Yep.
Scott Satterfield. The whole portal thing, the dates confound me. Everything needs to be moved up.
Everything about the college football calendar is screwy. Look, we can be critical of the NFL for a lot of things, but the way they lay out their schedule with the season, the postseason, free agency, the hiring cycle, the draft, camp, all that stuff, they do it well. And college football can't get out of its own way.
Yeah, I mean, the December signing period. Why? February was fine. February worked great. Now you're looking at this clogged up December. I get so frustrated by it. I love college football so much, but I look at this calendar and so much of it is just asinine and ridiculous. And coaches agree. They agree. I was speaking with Dave Clawson on Saturday, former Wake Forest coach. It's one reason that he gave up coaching. Now, I think he'll come back into coaching.
Sure.
But he just threw his hands up. He said it's out of control. Everything. And he's coming around because it is what it is. It just needs guardrails and structure and just to be better thought out. The calendar, if we have a better calendar, Tyler, we're probably playing the national championship right around New Year's, which I think is perfect.
Well, we did that for God knows how many years, and there was nothing wrong with it, but times change.
They do, man.
Yeah. I'm going to put your hat in the ring for commissioner. How about that? You and Josh
I would put
Payne.
Dave Clawson. I would put Joe Moglia, former Coastal Carolina coach.
Yeah.
I would put him in there. Nick Saban is the obvious candidate, but he keeps declining. He's like Caesar shunning the crown. No. Then he'll eventually take it.
Very, very true. We'll talk more about what South Carolina was able to keep and not lose to the portal coming up next to wrap up the hour. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton on your Monday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Halftime show, Tyler Head. Scott Hamilton wrapping up hour number 1 on your Monday here on the game. We talk a lot about what Carolina has lost to the portal. We mentioned getting Dylan Stewart back and, going into the offseason, I think when you look at kind of like the 3 biggest names that everybody was anxious to see what their decision was going to be, Stewart, obviously, Sellers, and Nick Harbor. And to be honest with you, Scott, I didn't think there was a chance they were going to retain all 3. I thought I felt like Sellers was going to go pro. I thought there was a strong chance Harbor could, and then I obviously worried about other schools throwing the bag at Dylan Stewart. But, retaining 1 out of 3, not outside the realm of possibility. 2 out of 3, not crazy, but 3 out of 3. I mean, that took some work, and you got to give credit to Darren Usher and obviously Jeremiah Donati and everybody involved in the behind-the-scenes stuff when it comes to this kind of thing and portal movement and all that and retention for getting the 3 kind of cornerstones of this team back for next year.
I didn't expect any of them to come back. I truly thought they were all gone for different reasons. I mean, I'm not convinced yet that Nick Harbor is still all in. Is he all in for football? I mean, I know he's focused on it more. But when you have that kind of rare gift that he has, speed, in Olympic the dreams. I mean, you have to chase that while you can. The window for football, as short as it is still vastly longer than that for track and field.
That is actually a really good question because, again, the big point of him last offseason was not doing track stuff, being in spring practice, committing to football and all that stuff. And, he made the return announcement on Christmas Day, but we've got no other details in terms of what his exact offseason plans are. You would hope it would be football related, but again, like you said, that window to capitalize on the Olympics is only so big. Next Olympics, obviously, for track, not until 2028, but that training and that process starts years in advance.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm him, and there'll be people that hate me for this, but I'm focusing on that because I can always come back to football. What's going to be different? He's still going to be fast. What he's doing now, is he going to be an elite receiver? Is he the next DK Metcalf with that size? A smarter one who makes better decisions.
Yeah, somebody would have taken him relatively high in the draft on the measurables alone. I don't think there's any denying that, which is why I think a lot of people, including myself, are like, maybe he does go.
Yeah, I don't know. If I'm him, I would be chasing that Olympic dream because how old is he? 21? Maybe 22?
So he is a true junior this year. So, yeah, right around there.
So those guys can run until age 30, 29?
Yeah, something like that.
Track and field guys are a little longer. They're older than like gymnasts and so forth.
Sure.
Now, where will he make more money? Obviously, he make more money in football. I mean, and probably playing college football.
Yeah, that's true.
Through NIL. I would love to know what's in his brain. As far as Dylan Stewart, he was the one that I thought of all of them would be most likely to come back because of where he had the injury problems. He didn't have the year he had last year. Okay. And you pointed it out smartly because he didn't have a Kennard to help balance things. Yep. And I thought he might be the guy who would come back for another year to really elevate his draft stock. And Sellers, I truly thought he was gone.
Yep. Well,
I saw no scenario where he came back.
Again, when you, as rough as this past season was, the in experts on the draft still had him as a potential first-round grade, maybe later in the first round, but still, that's first-round money, an opportunity to sit and learn with maybe a really good organization. We always pointed at the Rams, right, saying, all right, Matt Stafford's only got so many more years in the league. If you were to get drafted by the Rams, you can sit behind Stafford, develop, and then maybe you're their starter in 28 or something along those lines. And that's a tough opportunity to pass up. Now, again, Carolina had to pony up the money to do it, as they have with all these guys. But they made it happen. And, if Sellers didn't come back, the concern level this offseason of figuring out quarterback, if you weren't able to just go out there and get a super splash guy in the portal, would be at an all-time high because you're looking at either an unproven guy in Cutter Woods or Landon Duckworth, or somebody in the portal that maybe you're not sure about transitioning to this level, saying, all right, hope you can hold the reins and keep things on track here, but you feel a lot better. And pairing him with Kendall Briles to hopefully get him back to where he was 2 seasons ago.
Now the problem is you have to go and get a whole bunch of offensive linemen. What do they got? 6 in the portal?
7 of the 15 guys in the portal are offensive linemen. So, yes, you've got your work cut out for you.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing considering how that line played. I'm just going to throw that out there. You can't do any worse. I promise you that. But still, that's a lot of dudes to bring in. And are you going to be able to fill that out completely in the portal? I mean, the high school ranks obviously are going to be critical, but that's a developmental position when you go that route.
It is. And coming up at the top of the next hour, we'll get into what Beamer had to say about that mass exodus. It's a little bit of a longer piece from when he introduced Deion Barnes on Friday, but it's an important to note on because we knew they were going to be active in the portal at that spot anyway. I don't think we foresaw as many bodies going in as they did. But hey, like you said, it was bad last year. It's been bad for the past couple years. I don't want to say it can't get worse because it can always get worse. But if there was any group that needed to be gutted, that would be the one.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, having a fresh voice in the room, though, a fresh guy running it, I think it's going to go a long way. I hope he's heavily involved in recruiting the kind of lineman he wants. Because you and I have talked about this, how specific blocking schemes require specific skill sets and specific bodies.
Yeah, you're going to need.
You just can't plug and play.
You're going to need very athletic offensive linemen to do what this Kendall Browse offense is designed to do. And maybe they looked around this room and said, we don't like what we got here. Let's go find some other guys. We don't know, but and look, there are guys on campus right now visiting out of the portal at offensive line that could be committing in the next day or so. We'll see, but it's going to be a very busy time rebuilding that room over the course of the next couple of days and weeks. So we're going to go what Coach Beamer said about that the other day. Coming up on the other side as we get into hour number 2, it is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton on your Monday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. Halftime show, Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton along with you here on your Monday on the Game. Again, Bill Gunner will be back in tomorrow, his Christmas break. Extended one more day, which I guess it balances out. I was out the last day before Christmas, so we're even in that regard. Captain Dave will be back in tomorrow, all that stuff. So we're back to a proper halftime show family coming up tomorrow. But Scott Hamilton filling in for the day. And again, apologies for my voice, getting over a little bit of a cold from last week. So no, I've not been smoking cigarettes, I can assure you. I'm working to get it back to normal, and hopefully by the time Bill gets in here tomorrow, we'll get all that squared away. But again, hopefully everybody had a great Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that kind of stuff. What was Santa Claus good to Scott Hamilton?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't get anything. But
No. You guys still have the Christmas spirit, though, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Christmas.
Okay.
But I'm at an age now where people, they don't get anything.
Yeah.
They didn't get anything. But it's cool.
You know what?
Had
Sometimes
the day off.
as you get older, it's about giving more than receiving.
It is. It's funny you said that. I actually thought about that. It is. It's 100%. And I watched. Here was my Christmas day. I watched the same two movies. I went to the gym. The gym was open.
Okay.
Because you have access with the key fob. And then I watched the same two movies for about 14 hours.
What movies were those?
I rotated between It's a Wonderful Life and Christmas Vacation, with a little Christmas Story and Elf sprinkled in.
Okay, I think that's a fair Christmas Day compromise, or a rotation, I guess. Not bad.
Wasn't bad. Had pizza.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, hey.
What about you?
Look,
What'd you do?
Went back home. Spent about 5 days there, which is how I got sick, obviously. My niece and nephew's 11, niece is 8. Yeah, so my enjoyment is more of giving them gifts. I got them these, they're called Easy Rider scooters that you, move with your feet. They love them. So I think I won gift of the year.
Of course you did, Tyler.
Yeah, so I got to be the fun uncle. But
I got, books and stuff for people.
Well, hey, that's nothing wrong with that. As you get older, you appreciate books, socks, and money.
And you get the hard candies.
That's right. That's part of growing up, is appreciating the gifts as a kid. Well, I guess you'd appreciate money as a kid, but if somebody gave you a shirt when you're 8, you don't care about the shirt, you care about the toys. But now I'm wearing a jacket that I got for Christmas for my wife, because I'm yes, I needed more of those.
Okay. See, here's the thing. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she would buy my Christmas gifts for the following Christmas immediately after that Christmas, the day after when they had the sales.
That's kind of smart.
And a lot of times she bought clothes.
Oh, I see.
I was a girl and boy. So I'm getting pants that are, high water britches, but I got to wear them because she bought them.
Yeah, she was trying her best.
And I'd be like, can we just take them and swap? I mean, I begged my dad for whatever reason. So I'd be like, please, man, don't make me wear these. Don't. She bought me cowboy boots one time, dude, and my foot grew 3 sizes. I had to I hate cowboy boots anyhow.
Yeah.
And I had to squeeze into them.
That's funny.
It was awful. Funny. It was so bad.
Well, she was trying her best. That's what matters. Of course, Shane Beamer dealing a lot of things in the transfer portal right now, including a lot of offensive linemen that have left South Carolina, 7 of them to be exact up to this point. When he introduced Deion Barnes the other day, he talked about the mass exodus of offensive linemen. A little bit of a longer cut here, but here's what he had to say.
Knew we needed to get better. Look, when it is what it is, when you go 4-8, and I think we gave up 44 sacks, if I'm not mistaken, it's hard to say that we played great up front. It is what it is. And that's not all on the offensive line. That's on me. That's on the coaches. That's on, you guys have heard me say it before, guys see a quarterback get sacked and they automatically want to blame the offensive line. I'm not saying that. A lot of our sacks were on the quarterback. A lot of our sacks were on the running backs. Some of our sacks were on tight ends and receivers. We all had a hand in it. But it's hard to say that everything was great when we didn't play well enough. We didn't, and we need to be better. So I knew there was going to be somewhat of a reset. I knew there was going to be a new offensive line coach coming in here that was going to be able to, really shape that room the way they the way they needed to. And I wasn't, sitting in there saying we need to blow the whole thing up and bring in all these new offensive linemen. Like, we got to be able to practice too. And everybody in America wants offensive linemen. We're no different. And we just can't say everybody hit the road and we're going to remake the whole room. We've got some really good players in that room, some really talented players in that room that we need to continue to coach up even better than what we have. We've got guys in that room that were recruited by every school in America. And I'm excited about those guys because of the players they are, the people they are. But certainly there's some guys that, have left the program that, there's a financial element. It just is what it is at every position. And there's money that, guys, not just offensive linemen, but all across the country, money that guys want. And there's money that schools have available to give them, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily match up, and guys do what they feel is best for them in their career, and don't want any of those guys leaving, miss those guys, and appreciate everything the ones that are in the portal have done for our program, but it's just kind of part of it right now. But again, it wasn't a new coach come in, let's just take a grenade to the room and just remake the whole thing. It wasn't that, but it's also, look, we need to get better. None of us were good enough. We were 4-8. The head coach wasn't good enough. None of us were good enough, but that room's one of them where we need to be better.
And it's a delicate balance because, as he mentioned, that room wasn't up to standard last year. While you don't want to have to go out and fill as many holes as they now have in the offensive line, you look at it and say, well, a lot of those guys didn't live up to the billing last year, so there's no guarantee they're going to suddenly change with a new head coach, or a new position coach coming in. I will say Josiah Thompson is, I don't want to say the most surprising, because I do think from his acumen coming out of high school, he was going to command a lot of attention in the portal if he went in. But I was interested to see what Randy Clements could have done with the Josiah Thompson, to see if he could have got him back closer to what he was, or what we thought he was going to be, because he clearly took a big step back this year, but obviously now we're not going to know.
I'm wondering this. These guys who have left, these now 7 offensive linemen who are in the portal, how coveted are they? Are they blemished?
I
think take a step back.
Again,
what SEC school takes these guys?
I don't think SEC schools do. I do like it goes without saying, Thompson's got the highest upside, right? Because of what he was projected to be out of high school. I think Casey Henry is probably the best actual O-lineman out of this group. He's had his injury history, which doesn't help. I don't know if the SEC is looking at any of these guys. Quite frankly, they may, some of them probably going to have to go down a level. Now, again, like Boaz Stanley came up a level to play at South Carolina, so maybe he's going back down to G5 or FCS or something along those lines. But I don't see any of these guys being looked at. When schools land these guys, I don't know if parades are being thrown necessarily. You know what I mean?
And think about this, pay cut, revenue sharing. They're going to go somewhere where they're going to lose. How much more? This is just another step towards the NFL.
It is.
It really is. It's almost like baseball.
Yeah.
With the minor leagues.
Well,
these guys had their shot with the Braves. Now they're being sent to Richmond.
Yeah. Well, and going back to what Beamer said a moment ago in the exit meetings, if you want to call them that, they have with these guys once the season wraps up, I'm sure there were several of those offensive linemen that were making X amount of dollars, maybe into the 6 figures this past year, that did not play to that standard, that said, hey, I want this again. Well, you're not going to get that again if you stay here. That are like, all right, well, I'm going to go somewhere else. We're not privy to these conversations, but I'm sure those things happen.
Absolutely, they happen. Absolutely, they happen. I just think this is a consistent problem. This is something that's been a long time coming, and now he talks about not taking a grenade to the room. That's basically what they did, Tyler.
It is.
There's been a grenade taken to the room. We're not foolish, and he's trying to polish it as best he can. But he took a grenade to the room, and it had to be done. And you just hate that it happens now, and it didn't happen 2 years ago. Otherwise, how does this past season play out? Because offensive line, other than – actually, I'll tie it all together with the offensive play calling of Mike Shula. If you fix the offensive line problem to where it's at least serviceable a couple of years ago, we're having a very different conversation today.
Probably so. And look, the offensive line's been a consistent issue with Beamer, which is, I think a lot of people think the Lonnie Teasley move came maybe a year or two too late at that point in time. But regardless, what's done is done now. And Coach Clements comes in here from TCU to try and rebuild this room. And the tricky thing, especially with offensive line, we've seen a lot of schools go out there and try and do this, right? Colorado, in its first couple years with Dion, purely went portal with this offensive line. Did not work. Shedeur Sanders was running for his life. Vanderbilt went heavy offensive line in the portal, and it's worked, right? So you just don't know. It's a group that relies on continuity, relies on working together as one, that you can bring in 5 respectively good, talented guys, but there's not a guarantee that are going to mesh well together, which is the tricky part of what Coach Klim has cut out for him this offseason.
You know, it just, I hate to use this word, but I think it's apt. The greatness of Cignetti.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about identifying talent, not only identifying talent,
Sure.
but identifying talent that could gel together.
Totally.
It's absolutely incredible what he's done at Indiana. I don't think we make enough of it just yet. And I know he's bombastic and he's in your face and he's pretty blunt. Google me and all that. But the dude, what he has done is amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. No.
And that's an important part of it, Tyler. I mean, not only talent evaluation, identification and evaluation, but to also see how it would blend together. Anybody can look at a player and say, that guy's a dude.
Sure.
And you can look at another guy and say, hey, that guy's a dude. But you have to have a special gift to know that two dudes can play together, can coexist.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that'll transition into what we're going to talk about coming up next, which is the college football playoff, where Indiana right now is looking like the favorite still to win it all. We'll hit that coming up next. And again, Ralph Russo of The Athletic going to join us at the bottom of the hour, talk some college football playoff as well. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton on your Monday on the Game.
first of all, my team and I want to give all the glory to God. What a historic venue, the Rose Bowl, one of the best venues in all of sports. It's just a great conglomerate of individuals coming together and really forming complementary football. Coach Sig has hit on us, no complacency, and especially when you have a bye, it's tough to get in the rhythm of football. But once we got our feet on the ground, we knew that we're going to stick together and come out with this W.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Ed and Scott Hamilton with you on your Monday here on the game. That was the Boy Scout himself, Fernando Mendoza, talking about the Rose Bowl victory, the thumping that Indiana had of Alabama just the other day on New Year's Day to advance in the semifinals. The lone team with a bye to win in the 12-team format era of the college football playoff. Scott, you've been covering the sport a long time. You ever heard a quarterback use conglomerate in a post-game interview?
I'm so glad you asked me that. May I have a moment to break down his entire interview with Holly Rowe?
Sure, go ahead.
Number one, he thanks his Lord and Savior because he's a man of deep faith, and I dig it. That's just so cool. Number two, he praises his opponent.
Yes.
All this is on script right now, okay? All this is on script. Then he praises his team, of course, before specifically shouting out his offensive line, the Hoggies.
Yep.
The Hoggies, they even have a name. And then he gets asked a question about the Heisman. And he somehow flips the most iconic trophy in all of sports, individual trophy in all of sports, into a team award, goes back to praising his opponent again, and then, without any prior preparation, without being in the know, he is informed that they are going to be playing Oregon. He had no clue.
Mm-hmm.
And he seamlessly segues into 25 seconds about Oregon and what a titanic matchup it's going to be. Congressman Mendoza, okay? It's going to happen. I think he is unbelievable. He's Tim Tebow with talent.
Ooh, yeah, and he wears 15 too. It's a good point.
He's Tim Tebow with talent. That's exactly who he is. He's maybe not the bruising style and all that, but he's Tim Tebow with talent. He's Tim Tebow with an NFL future. He doesn't get rattled. I'm so impressed with this guy. But let me ask you this. Are we talking about him if he stays at Cal?
Probably not, because Cal, I don't know, maybe they could have been better this year with him, obviously. But I remember, because, Cal had that moment in the sun last year, and that's when I really first started paying attention. I'm like, oh, this guy's pretty good. And
Calgorithm.
Yeah, the Calgorithm. And I know, when the portal opened up, he entered his name into it. He was one of the more sought-after quarterbacks. But, I'd never heard the guy speak before. I didn't know anything about him, his personality or anything like that. But, seeing what we've seen, what he's accomplished, and what there's still yet to be accomplished in the next couple of weeks, you can't root against this guy.
You can't. And they were also playing at midnight on the eastern part of the country. He's a kid from Miami who had to go to Cal.
Yep.
He had to go to Cal. Why didn't anybody else pick this guy up? Curt Cignetti saw this guy cooking over on the West Coast, brought him to Indiana. Because Kevin Rourke was the previous quarterback, came from Ohio University.
Yep.
And he was good. This guy's great.
Sure.
So I'm wondering this. Mendoza gone. He's gone.
Oh yeah.
Who do they bring in next?
Well, they got his little brother as the backup.
They got little brother as a backup who doesn't look terrible. But I have to think that one of these quarterbacks in the portal is going to end up not a Lagway. Lagway doesn't fit that profile. But he's going to get one of these guys, and what happens then? One of these guys who we already know can cook.
I think it's one of those things because, again, Brandon Sorsby's committed to Texas Tech $5 million to move on from Cincinnati. I don't know what Indiana's total NIL resources are. I don't know if they're going to be able to get the second or third best quarterback in the portal. But if you got a guy that really wants to win a national championship, then maybe you're willing to take a little bit less to also improve his own draft stock. Indiana's your place to go.
Where does Sam Levitt go?
Ooh, I've heard a lot of different possibilities on that one.
What would be a good match? The one name I'm not hot on, well, probably Lagway. I'm not sold on him. I was not sold on Dylan Raiola.
He's fine. I don't think
He's
he's become. I don't think he's blossomed into a 5-star superstar, but he's been fine. I've just got the injury that doesn't help, but I don't know. Which I was kind of hoping he'd go to Texas Tech to complete the Patrick Mahomes, caricature.
To fulfill the prophecy.
Fulfill the prophecy. That's not going to happen. So I'm interested to see where he lands, but he'll be a fine quarterback wherever he goes.
Here's one we're not talking about, and we can bring it closer to home. What about Chandler Morris? He's trying to get an extra year. Does he end up in Clemson?
Maybe. We'll see.
I've said all along they need that handcuff deal with the OC.
Yeah.
That would be the most Dabo thing ever, because then he can get a quarterback out of the portal without having to say he had to resort to going to the portal to get a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And we'll see what happens as the portal stuff rolls on. Getting back to the college football playoff, though, while Fernando Mendoza lost some praise at Alabama, nobody else is. That was a thorough beating. I tweeted this out the other day. That is the worst loss Alabama's had since the 1998 Music City Bowl. Shane Beamer was on that team. Alabama does not get beat by 30-plus points, but they did, and they quit. Like, that team legitimately quit in the second half. Indiana could have made it a whole lot worse. They called off the dogs eventually. Like,
who was the Alabama coach?
It's so surreal.
It is surreal. We're watching. First of all, it was surreal watching Indiana play in the Rose Bowl.
Sure.
And then watching Indiana play Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Then watching Indiana drub Alabama in the Rose Bowl. It was just so surreal. And it's the new world we're in, though. We have to reset our minds. We've talked about this over and over and over, and this is just further validation that we have to reset our minds. We are in a world where Indiana beats Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and the coach at BYU turns down Michigan. That's the world we're in. Or Penn State. Yeah. That's the Penn State. Same. I mean, that's the world we're in, where BYU is maybe a better job than Penn State. Guys aren't climbing over themselves to take these jobs that we used to say were destination jobs. Is every job a destination job? Or any job's a destination job? Alabama, maybe? Ohio State?
If they are willing to give you the resources to succeed, which means money, right?
It's a destination.
Look, I think every Power 4 school is able to cover the revenue sharing. That's not a problem. It's what you can do over the cap. And that's where the Texas Techs and the LSUs are winning, by having that extra slush fund of money to go out there and get whatever they want.
I was talking to a coach over the weekend, and he told me Virginia decided to be good at football. They have money. They were good at football.
They were.
Indiana, they decided to be good at football. They have the money. They're good at football. Vanderbilt is good at football. Texas Tech is the best example.
Yes.
Now the caveat, not really a caveat, but the prerequisite to all this, all that money is great, but you still have to have the guy who can put the recipes together.
Sure.
Anybody can go out and get the most expensive groceries, but you've got to have a skilled chef that can put them all together to make it taste good. And that's where Cignetti comes in.
Yeah, no, Cignetti's a phenomenal coach, and he continues to prove that game in and game out. And look, credit to Joey McGuire and what he did at Texas Tech this year. I don't know if Joey McGuire's an elite coach. I haven't seen him enough outside of the Big 12 to know yet. He's obviously got the resources, and he's done good with those resources. Can he take that next step with them in the future is the big question for him.
Yeah, that is the big question for them. Their offense was not great. The defense was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I'm wondering, now that they've established that brand. Now, think about this, though. Indiana got boat raced in the playoff last year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Against Notre Dame.
Correct.
Texas Tech didn't get boat raced, but didn't look great. Now they are positioned to take that next step, that they've elevated their brand in the world of college football.
They just spent $5 million on a quarterback today. So they're doing
like $5 million on a quarterback.
Yeah. They're not wasting any time, that's for sure.
There are Power 4 coaches that don't make that much.
That's right. I know. It's crazy.
That is. It's the new world, though, and I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I just want to eventually have some kind of structure and guardrails, because the House settlement was supposed to do that with regards to like a salary cap, and it failed because NIL is still the Wild West.
It very much is, and until they collectively bargain something, it's going to continue to be.
Well, I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
I don't either, but
because of the school presidents and the chancellors and the academia ones. They don't, the idea of calling student athletes employees gives them so much heartburn.
Yeah, I know. And that's where the hang up is on all this. So we'll talk more college football playoff with Ralph Russo of The Athletic coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton along with you here on your Monday on the Game. right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton along with you here on your Monday on the game. And as the week goes along, we'll get closer to the semifinals of the college football playoff. 4 teams still alive. Indiana and Oregon will play on Friday night, and then we'll get Miami as well as Ole Miss on Thursday night out in the Fiesta Bowl. Joining us now to talk all things college football playoff on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines from The Athletic is Ralph Russo. Ralph, first of all, appreciate you taking your time. How are we doing today, and was that the Final Four that you predicted when this whole tournament started?
It was most certainly not. I think I got a couple of them right, maybe 1, 2. I definitely had. Good question. Did I have any of these teams in the Final Four? I had Oregon in there. So otherwise, it was a big whiff for me. The silly thing on my part was not totally buying into Indiana, and frankly, it was a little bit of a whimsical, like, hey, there's going to be an upset somewhere here, and there turned out to be an upset, right? Like Miami beating Ohio State was a pretty good upset, a pretty good size upset, and Georgia to a certain degree losing to Ole Miss was a decent upset. So we definitely had some upsets. I just picked the wrong one and was a dope because of it, because Indiana is just a killing machine, and there was really no reason to think that they weren't going to steamroll an Alabama team that, frankly, and I really don't want to relitigate this, but frankly probably didn't deserve to get in.
Ralph and Scott, what was more impressive to you? Indiana absolutely steamrolling Alabama, or the job that Pete Golding is doing under some really weird circumstances?
It's always going to be Indiana at this point, because I just can't believe how good they are. Just the story of Indiana is so incredible. But that's not to take away anything from Pete Golding. The Golding thing is super interesting, because I've heard people say, well, they know they got their coach now, clearly. And listen, he has done a terrific job under weird, difficult circumstances. But I also do wonder if this is the idea that this team got jilted by their coach has been something of a galvanizing force for everybody who is truly on board, right? Everybody who was left behind, players, coaches, and some of the coaches have been caught in limbo, basically sort of, rallied around their circumstances, and that has in some ways lifted them up. Now, he's the leader, so you give him credit for that, but I do wonder a little bit of how many of this has been a little sort of just the players looking at their circumstance and saying, to hell with that guy who left us. Like, let's just, what's I won't use the foul language, but what's the line from Major League? Let's just go out and win the whole thing. Like, I just wonder if that's what's going on in Oxford right now.
And they've got a huge cutout of Joey Freshwater, and they pull off like a visor and things like that. Right. I just can't help but feel, though, like it's almost like no matter how hard these guys try, that they're being undermined. I mean, we've gotten reports, and Ralph, you know better than anybody, please help me out here, that some of the assistants immediately went back to LSU to go back to work there, but they might or might not be coming back for the next round. Is that correct?
Yeah, it sounds like. So this is not to minimize any of the other coaches on staff.
Sure.
The most important person to show up on Thursday for Ole Miss among those other assistants, right? Again, I understand they all have a role, and it's much better to be doing your role and to have them all there. But the most important person is Charlie Weiss Jr., who calls the offensive plays, and he will be there, right? So we've established that. Again, unprecedented circumstances. They seem to have adapted. I will say this, though. So, yes, it sounds like almost all the other coaches won't be there Thursday. So that's your running backs coach, one of the tight ends coaches who I know has some, Joe Cox, who has some influence in the game planning and stuff like that. That is definitely not ideal. But I also would say this. the coaches doing two jobs at this point in the year, like Oregon's got two coaches, two coordinators basically doing two jobs. Now, they're not leaving Oregon and shuttling back and forth to Cal for Tosh Lupoy and Kentucky for Will Stein. But Kentucky's been really active in the portal, so clearly Will Stein's got some other things that he's doing these days. And again, I don't want to minimize it because it makes me feel like I'm minimizing those coaches. I just think as long as you have your play caller, you should be okay. Because if what you're telling me is, the job of the running backs coach is to make sure Kawan Lacey is in the game, I can probably get somebody else to do that, and we'll be okay on game day. I can't get somebody to replicate what my play caller is doing.
Again, talking to Ralph Russo of The Athletic here on the AAA Heating Air phone lines. We're 2 years into the 12-team college football playoff. Teams with byes are now 1-7 so far, Indiana being the one exception with their win in the Rose Bowl last week. You wrote about it the other day. We can all scream for change. It might not be that simple, though.
Yeah, first of all, I'm still not 100% sure this is a real problem to fix. But I think I had somebody make an interesting point. And it's not necessarily belaboring the layoff being a problem to fix. It's more of a matter of, if you think about it as, we want the top four seeds to be rewarded, because was the point of this, right? Like you're motivating these teams to strive for being a top four team and trying to win their conference and things along those lines that get them there. And if the perception is, and maybe to a certain degree the reality is, you're not really getting a reward at becoming a top four seed, that has ramifications that could bleed into the regular season, where you literally have teams who are like, this game doesn't really matter because the difference between 4 and 5, I'm getting somewhat of a reward for being 4, but maybe not that big of a reward for being 4. So that's probably where it's a more interesting, a more interesting way to look at it. And as far as fixing it, listen, man, they're not even sure how many teams are going to be in this playoff next year. We're still trying to figure out the basic format. I equated it to, so yes, how to fix this problem can be tricky, whether you go to 16 and how you go to 16. And if it stays at 12, I don't think you fix it at all. But it's also like me saying, I'm trying to build a house, and you come to me and ask, do you want 2 vanities in the bathroom? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just trying to get the foundation laid here. That's a problem for later. And the buy thing is sort of a small problem while they're trying to fix a bigger problem, which is, what the hell is going to go on with this playoff next year? How big is it going to be?
Yeah, Ralph, you'd probably talk to more coaches than I do. I'm certain you do. And the ones I've spoken with, though, they don't like the bye. And I actually had a couple of coaches tell me they hate byes during regular season. What's the temperature amongst the coaches? Because I have to think that they're the ones who are going to drive for change. And again, we don't know what route that change will take, if it'll be good, if it'll be bad. But I have to think that if they don't want byes, they're not going to have byes.
So that is it. I think that what the coaches will say is, right. It's not necessarily the bye, like a 1 week bye, like you would have in the regular season, or like you have in the NFL playoffs, right? Where everybody's going to play next week except one team, and that one team's going to get to advance to the next round. And, that's an important thing because it allows them to rest and get themselves, healed up. So 1 week, a bye can be very advantageous, right? It is truly a reward. Plus, hey, it's easier to win 3 games than 4 games, right? That's the other thing made sure I put in the story. The bye is essentially saying you get to play and win the championship by playing 1 less game. So that's an inherent advantage. The problem becomes the layoff, right? It's just this idea that because of the way the calendar sets up and the way the playoff sets up, getting a bye would be great if we were sitting out just 1 extra week. But now it turns into a 30-day or 25-day layoff. And I'm trying to figure out, as Dan Lanning talked about from his preparation last year when they lost, it's like, we got to do fake games, and how am I keeping my players on top of their game and prepared for 2 weeks of nothing, and now we're ramping up to play a game. So that's the problem. Like I said, we talk about it as a bye problem. It's essentially a layoff problem.
Ralph, about 60 seconds here. We've been doing the college ball playoff over a decade. Where does Georgia Ole Miss rank in terms of all-time games for you?
Oh gosh, I hadn't even thought about that. But that's a good point, though. When we talk about buys and the way the playoff is going out and blowouts and things like that, like for a lot of the 4-team playoff, there wasn't a whole lot of competitive games in that too. So for all the folks that want to bash poor old James Madison, there's a lot of good Big Ten teams that got blown out of playoff games for years and years during the 4-teamer. I would say that's probably like a top 5. I'm thinking of like things like Georgia, Ohio State from maybe 2021 or 2022. That same year, TCU, Michigan played a really good one. Georgia, Oklahoma played a really good one in the Rose Bowl. Like there haven't been that many great ones. So is it top 5? Maybe it's squeezing in the top 5, but it's certainly top 10.
Good stuff as always. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
That's Ralph Russo of The Athletic. We'll come back, wrap up the hour. What happened with men's basketball's SEC Open over the weekend? That's coming up next on the Halftime Show here on The Game.
TJ Lagway is at Florida State right now.
All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton along with you here on your Monday on the Game, talking a lot of college football, but was also the opening week/weekend of SEC basketball play. Women's teams played 2 games so far. We'll get to them coming up in a moment. Men's team in action on Saturday, taking on Vanderbilt over at Colonial Life Arena. And unfortunately, not go well for South Carolina and Lamont Paris' team. 83-71 loss as they dropped to 0-1 in conference play. And once again, Scott, as we've been talking about a lot of these past couple weeks, Carolina can beat the really bad teams, the teams that are in the 290s and plus in KenPom, but when you put them up against a team with a pulse, they can't quite seem to get the job done. And unfortunately, that was the case again on Saturday.
Yeah, I that's been a pattern really since Lamont Paris' second year, I guess.
Yeah.
First year came out like gangbusters, and then since then it's just been kind of mediocre at best. But make no mistake about it, though, Vanderbilt is really good.
Oh, Vanderbilt's one of the better stories of college basketball this year for sure.
Yeah, they're 10th in scoring offense, 12th in defensive efficiency. Now that's according to KenPom. But that ain't too shabby. And the latest top 25 just came out. Let me see where they landed. I'm pretty sure they landed around top 10, number 11.
Yeah.
So they still haven't been ranked though. I don't think since the 90s. I need to do some research on that. But they've got that program cooking.
Yeah, they do.
The program, I'll tell you the one I'm keeping an eye on is Nebraska.
Yeah.
Have you ever known Nebraska to be an elite basketball program?
Not particularly, but again, nothing's impossible in today's age. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's further validation that the transfer portal and NIL is the best thing to ever happen to college basketball.
And look, Vanderbilt was playing without one of their best players in Duke Miles on Saturday, and that seemed like an opportunity that South Carolina could potentially take advantage of. And look, I think we've gotten to the point now where we have to just assume three-point shooting is not going to be the strength of this team. I know that's what the offense was built to be, but you have yet another game where you're shooting under 30% from on the arc. And in the first half, they had that little run where they had a couple of three-pointers in a row there. Miles Studi made a few, but it's not something, given the amount of times they take these shots, it's not something that you're considering the bread and butter of your offense, because you've had a couple games against lower teams where it's worked. When you played quality competition, it hasn't. So there's not a whole lot of indication to tell me this is going to be a night in, night out thing you can rely on in the SEC. And it's what your offense is built around at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it going back to early in the season. They're shooting, getting up 40 or more three-pointers a game and lucky to hit 15 of them, around 32% or so. That's not going to get it done. Look, everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to say, oh, we're going to launch threes and, be up-tempo and light up the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good, man. But not everybody has the dogs to do that. You got to be more prudent than that. I don't know what this team's identity is, to be honest with you.
And here's the problem, and this is something that Lamont Paris did talk about after the game on Saturday. We're talking about KenPom rankings here. South Carolina is in the top 10 nationally in 2-point percentage and free throw percentage. So that tells you if you work closer to the basket, you'll be more successful. And he talked about that on Saturday, telling his players, hey, we need to get closer to the basket. We need to get in the paint. We need to cut and all that kind of stuff. And it's just not happening at the clip that it needs to. They still keep playing farther and farther back. And again, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's kind of the reality that South Carolina basketball is living right now.
Okay, so has he lost the team?
I don't think
sounds to me like it's going in one ear, going out the other.
I don't think he's lost the team because they're still playing hard, but they're not, the messaging for whatever reason isn't coming across. So I wouldn't say lost the team, but there's a disconnect somewhere there in the middle.
Think about it. What did he sell these guys to bring them? We're going to shoot three-pointers. We're going to be a team that hangs their hat on offense.
And that's what a lot of the roster building in the offseason was.
And these guys are going to stick to what they told they were going to do, even though it's proven that it's not working.
Yeah, I know. It's frustrating to watch. And look, the law of averages in basketball tell you there's going to be a night where it all clicks, right? And they'll make, 12 out of 30 from three, and they'll beat a really good team. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it can, right? That's just how the sport of basketball goes. But to survive in the SEC, it needs to be consistent, and we're not seeing consistency, and there's no days off. I mean, you got a more manageable game maybe tomorrow against LSU, but that's not a guarantee, and it's going on the road too. Georgia's scoring 150 points a game. They're coming in here on Saturday. There's no reprieve. You had your reprieve with the lighter non-conference schedule for the most part, and you handled your business there. But when the competition steps up to that quad one level, you're not there. I just don't know what can change now that we're halfway through the season to make it better.
Let me get your take on this. Last year, the SEC, it was just unassailable. It was the best conference in America in basketball. 14-2
Right.
in that ACC-SEC challenge. A little different this year, 9-7. Is it a situation where maybe the ACC and perhaps the other conferences have elevated themselves, or has the SEC has it come back to the pack?
I think the SEC is still good. I think last year was just so historically great.
Yeah.
It's hard to live up to that. Again, you're going to have players going to the draft, players transferring elsewhere, and all that kind of stuff. I don't think this team, and you can just look at the way they played non-conference against other Power 4 opponents, probably not going to get 14 teams in the dance, right? Could they get 10 or 11? Sure. That's still really good. It's not the market was a year ago. That's just going to be really hard to live up to on a year-in, year-out basis. But if we're talking about like what Carolina needs to do to get in the dance, you're going to have to probably be somewhere around 500, which would mean winning 9 conference games, which right now I don't see the team looking like a team that can do that.
No, and I'm looking at the schedule now. I don't see 9 wins on there. I don't. I mean, they've still got LSU coming up. They've still got Florida. Florida's a mercurial team. Florida and Tennessee both are mercurial.
Yeah.
Any given night, they look like an elite basketball squad. Then, of course,
Sure.
every other night they don't. What is a good season then? What do we equate with a good season?
Let's talk about that on the other side, and we'll also discuss women's basketball as well as we get in hour number 3. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton on your Monday on the Game. All right, welcome back in hour number 3. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton powered along here on your Monday. Again, I appreciate everybody for rolling with the punches with me and my voice that's still yet to recover. I actually woke up feeling halfway decent, but the more you talk, the worse it gets. I've been taking those emergency vitamin packets, and those have been doing really good. I did not take one today. I have a feeling if I take one when I get home, that might help out a lot. So fingers crossed, we'll see.
I took something the other day. I started feeling bad, and as soon as I took it, I started feeling better, and it wasn't crack. I'll look it up and tell you after this segment. It is crazy because I was told to get it by people who have taken it when they've started to get sick and immediately fought it off.
As long as it's legal, then we're good.
It is legal. Yes, I got it at Food Lion.
Okay. Well, you asked a question as I went into the break there, talking about men's college basketball. What is a good year for South Carolina? What would we look at to make this year successful? Because again, when you come off of making the NCAA tournament for the first time at that point in 7 years since you made the Final Four run, the expectations the next year of, okay, do it again. Get back, right? This is a program that's not had long, sustained success in the tournament. So just even being in that conversation is a plus, is a positive. They were light years away from being in that last year, went on the long losing streak, didn't start winning conference games till it didn't really matter didn't really matter anymore at the very end. This year, again, with where the SEC is, you're probably going to have to be around 500 or better in conference play to make the tournament. And based on what I've seen so far, I don't think this team's capable of that. Things can change. There's still basically 2 months of basketball left to be played. But I think, especially in what is a pivotal year for Lamont Paris, I think you gotta find your way into the conversation, right? Maybe you don't have to make the tournament, but you need at least be one of those teams that's considered, right?
What's the expectation though for the program in general? It's hiding behind the women. It's always going to run behind football, baseball.
Well, and here's the thing. And this is what I've noticed. This is me as a observer that's come in doing this job for 3 years. The level of care this fan base has for this men's basketball program doesn't match the success the program's had over the years, right? The state of South Carolina loves basketball. A lot of great talents come through this state, right? The men's basketball program here has not historically had the success that aligns with that. So you have a fan base that really, really cares and really wants you to do well with a program that historically has not been that. But in today's world of college sports, there is no, you just can't win there, right? Because everywhere, we talk about with football, with Indiana and Vanderbilt and all that, if you bring in the right guy and you give him the resources, you can have success anywhere.
I agree, but I will counter that by saying it's not a love of basketball; it's a love of the brand.
Okay,
Gamecock fans love everything Gamecocks. When the football team was going 0-11, they were still packing out Willie B. It was absolutely incredible, and they'll support basketball to a point, no matter how mediocre or worse it is. Of course, everybody loves a winner, but I get the feeling though that the program is I hate to use the word apathy, but it's almost apathetic. That it's okay to just exist because the women's program is so nationally relevant.
Well,
I think that I truly believe that. And Tyler, have you ever gone to a men's game and a women's game in the same weekend?
I have not.
That's when it really hits you.
Okay.
Totally different experiences. It's like being on another planet.
Okay. Well, it's that makes a lot of sense if you were comparing them back to back. And I would say, I don't think the women's success creates apathy. I think it creates more of a desire to want to see the men's team succeed, right? Because hey, half of the puzzle's doing well. What's wrong with the other half? And I get it. Men's and women's basketball is two very different sports in the way you build rosters and the way teams work and all that kind of stuff. But having tasted success with one at the very highest level of women's college basketball makes you want that other side to be that much better, right?
I think it's more acceptance for not being that good. I really do, because it's not like the women are just going out and they're competing for SEC titles. They are competing for and expected to win national titles, to be the big dog when recruiting. And I get it. They have a generational coach.
Yeah.
One of the all-time greats. I mean, that's a game changer. And unless that happens for the men, will the standard always be the standard? 500, man, what a good year. See you next season.
Yeah.
That doesn't fly anywhere like a Kentucky. It's not going to float.
Yeah, well,
and you see these other SEC schools who have invested football money into basketball over the last decade since they had that meeting, and it was right before Sankey became commissioner. Mike Slive called in. He called in Mike Trangisi from the Big East, and said, I want you to be the czar of SEC basketball. How do we make it better? And they took all that football money that was coming in, that extra money, and they invested it into basketball facilities. They invested it into coaches. And you see, Alabama basketball has risen proportionally over that time. Auburn, Tennessee, but South Carolina is treading water at best.
Yeah, they are. And again, these other schools that are, figuring out basketball and being a part of that mix of the better teams in the SEC are kind of leaving them behind, right? And, there again, still a lot of basketball to be played this season, so we're not ready to bury them just yet, but we need to see a lot better than what we've seen these past couple weeks to hope this season's gonna turn around. On the flip side, since you mentioned women's basketball, they did play yesterday, went on the road to Florida, and, well, it was not a walk in the park, but they did escape with a victory. Here's what Dawn Staley had to say.
I mean, they're all going to be like this. Like, they're not going to be like, we just going to walk through and win games by 30 points. That is not how it's going to be in our league. But, I mean, we knew it was going to be a tough game. Last time we were here, we were down big. Like, it might have been double digits. You remember? Last time we were double digits, early double digits. So we reminded our players of that. I don't think any of them were on the team, maybe Raven. So, I mean, we keep that in the back of our minds, and just, in real time, you got to figure out how to win. You got to make adjustments. You got to make sure your players are confident enough to turn the page and get to the next thing, so it doesn't impact, what's happening in real time. So, I mean, they're still very young, still a young group as far as how much time they've been together, but they're growing up.
74-63 win at the Swamp, or down in Gainesville yesterday. They picked up a dominant win against Alabama on New Year's Day. Last week's a 2-0 in conference play. It wasn't the best day. Turned the ball over 21 times, shot 34% from the field. They found a way to win. They've been without Tanai Latz in the past couple games, and, that's the funny thing, right, is it's like South Carolina's B- or even C+ game is still better than a lot of other programs' A games, and I think you saw kind of an example of that yesterday.
These are the best things that can happen, because they win the game. 21 turnovers, they won the game.
Right.
And this is like Nick Saban. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe it was 3 years ago, when Nick Saban, or Alabama rather, struggled against, was it South Florida? And that's when they decided to go all in with Jalen Milroe at quarterback after that. And they went on this amazing run, probably the best team in the country for that stretch. After that, he was never happier.
Right.
That they struggled, they got the win, and they were able to teach a lot of lessons. Everything that happened yesterday is going to reinforce this team later when it counts come the postseason. Okay? Everything Dawn said was spot on, but it's also on script. She's going to preach that. And she's waiting for these opportunities where she can say, not every win's going to be easy. Not every win's going to be but 30 points. This was a good thing.
No, it absolutely was. And, that's not their first, or they've lost already to Texas in non-conference play out at the Players era on Thanksgiving. So they have suffered a loss. But yes, these wins, and yesterday's, she mentioned not winning every game by 30 points, which is what we just expect them to do no matter who the opponent is. That was like the spread. It was like 29.5 yesterday, and it ends up being a much tighter game than that. But it is learning opportunities. Again, you're playing without Tanai Latson, who hopefully will be coming back very, very soon. You're dealing with the short bench, but they're finding ways to win. They also went out over the break and went out and brought in the French player, Alicia Tornabais. I'm probably mispronouncing that. 6'7" French forward. We don't know when she's going to be able to play, but it at least nothing else adds more depth to a team that has been banged up a lot this year. And again, the standard continues to be the best of the best in women's college basketball. And again, even on an off day, they still find a way to win.
But, my biggest takeaway from that is now the women are bringing in midseason players
Right.
from across the pond. Like we're seeing these guys coming from Europe or these guys coming from the G League. Now the women are getting on board.
Yeah.
That'll be a whole nother show.
It's what you got to do, right? While we're talking about college basketball, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to detail what happened when Cal played Notre Dame the other day.
Here's an opportunity to win the game.
Lob comes into Carson Tout. Plays it up top. Shrewsbury off balance. California's hung on and won. Shrewsbury got a look. And a wild sequence over in the corner of the court near the Notre Dame bench. Micah Shrewsbury needed to be held back.
Oh, yes, he did. Micah Shrewsbury, head coach for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, after losing 72-71 to Cal on Saturday, goes after the official postgame because when Cal was attempting to tie the game with a three-pointer after being down 68-71, they called a foul, which necessitated allowed for the N1, which gave Cal the lead with 5 seconds to go and would hang on to win the game. Tight, controversial call. We've seen many coaches argue with officials. You've been covering the sport a long time. You ever seen one attempt to choke an official out after a game or whatever he was going to do when he got there?
No, this is next level. This is up there with Juwan Howard going after the a Wisconsin assistant coach a couple of years ago. This is up there with Latrell Sprewell choking out PJ Carlesimo. This is troubling, man.
Yeah.
But what's the end game here, though?
Like in terms of what he was trying to accomplish in that moment?
What's going to happen to him? I know he's apologized.
Yeah, they're not. There doesn't seem like they're going to suspend him. They reprimanded him, but it doesn't say that they're going to suspend him.
Man, come on. You got to. I reprimand you, Tyler, for being sick today. I mean, come on.
That'll show him.
That's bogus, dude.
Yeah.
It's just Notre Dame. I am so sideways with Notre Dame right now, anyhow.
Yeah. Also, like, I don't know if Micah Shrewsbury just wanted to look tough or if he actually had a plan, but, of course, everybody grabbed him before he could get there. So he looks like a maniac, though. I don't know if he would have done anything when he got there or not.
Did you see the Will Wade clip at NC State where he went off on the reporter for asking him about one of his players?
Yes.
And it's also performative, like the Brian Kelly,
Sure.
Smacking the table, and I'm so angry. And now you got this. I don't think this was performative. I think this was legitimate. But I do think there needs to be ramifications for this. They cannot let this pass. The officials have got to be untouchable, literally.
Yeah.
And for him to charge at one like that, and he's apologized. Yeah. If he felt the need to apologize for something, then it warrants punishment.
Well, up to this point, nothing's happened. We'll see if the ACC changes their mind. Scott, I appreciate hanging with me. Man, thanks for helping me keep the show afloat today.
Do I need to send over like an oxygen tent?
I'll be all right. I'm just going to go home and not talk for the rest of the day when it's over.
You're the man, Tyler. Hang in there, brother.
Appreciate it, Scott. Scott Hamilton there filling in for Bill Gunner, who'll be back in here coming up tomorrow, as we do each and every Monday. We'll talk to our guy, Jamie Bradford, coming up next, get his thoughts on everything that's happened with Gamecock football over the past couple weeks. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, along with you here on your Monday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you here on your Monday on the game. As we're recapping everything that's happened over the past couple weeks in Gamecock Sports, it was a very busy Christmas and New Year's. And as we do each and every Monday, we bring in our guy, Jamie Bradford, on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines to join me for a couple segments here. Jamie, appreciate the time as always. Happy late Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you. How you doing today, man?
Good, man. Good. It sounds like you've got what my family's been running through for the last 2 weeks. So Happy New Year to everybody, and hopefully 26 is better for at least men's sports on the South Carolina side.
I don't want to say it can get worse because that's always a possibility, but the bar is extremely low to clear. We'll say that much.
Yeah, it was tough. That was tough, but obviously football is doing everything they can in the off season at least to get things back on track. And baseball is right around the corner, and they got virtually an entirely new roster. So I mean, there's a lot to look forward to, but they just got to get out there and got to play well.
As I mentioned, a lot of things happening over the holidays in the past couple weeks, and look, we know there are going to be more names going in the portal, more guys announcing their returns. We didn't quite foresee another coaching change after you'd made the 3 hires a couple weeks ago, but lo and behold, right before Christmas, obviously Sterling Lucas goes and takes the job at LSU. Sounds like, according to Beamer, some unwritten rules were broken with how that was going down between him and Lane Kiffin and Sterling Lucas. Regardless, he's gone now. You bring in Deion Barnes from Penn State, and thankfully, very quickly, they got the Dylan Stewart stuff locked down because, of course, as soon as Sterling Lucas leaves, everybody starts freaking out. Oh, my God, Dylan Stewart's going to follow him. They're going to throw a bag of money at him, and he's going to be gone to LSU. So at least half of the equation is returning in regards to the edge room.
Well, yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I think that, I mean, it's hard to look at the changes they've made now that the staff is complete. Even though, Deion Barnes is a younger guy, but his track record is clearly really, really good. And Shane, when he was talking about him, I guess last week or the week before, whenever that was, I mean, he said it wasn't really much of a choice once they spoke with him. It was pretty easy from there. But I think when you look on paper and you look at all the guys that they have now brought in to replace the guys that they have lost, as far as the coaches go, it's hard to look at it and think that they didn't upgrade virtually every single position on the coaching roster, to be honest with you. And that's with all due respect to everybody who coached before these guys. I mean, they gave it their all. They did everything that they could. But, it's also an indictment on Shane Beamer because, I mean, you're coming off of a 4-8 season in a year in which he's going into where he's largely regarded as being, quote unquote, on the hot seat, right? And here's a bunch of really quality guys who want to be a part of this. So I think it's a really good sign. And now it's time to put the roster together or whatever's left out there to put together on the roster, and let's go see what it looks like here in a couple months.
That is something Bill and I talked about the other week is, when you go back to following the Clemson game, where, again, you'd already made some staff moves and knew some hires needed to be made. Obviously didn't foresee the Sterling Lucas thing happening, but in terms of the hires that you made, like you said, upgrading at every single spot, I mean, and look, there's still work to be done in the portal in terms of who you bring in, but it's been a relatively positive offseason for the most part, all things considered, with what the season was, being 4-8, losing to Clemson there at the very end, because Beamer's moves up to this point have been kind of exactly what you wanted them to be for the most part.
Well, exactly, and I think it's a long ways from where he was. I mean, when Coach Beamer was hired, we all talked about this relentlessly. The fact that you're hiring a guy. Coach Tanner hired a guy who'd never been a head coach, right? So there were going to be things called growing pains. And everybody is willing to say that if they believe in the guy. But then once you go through the growing pains, there's not a lot of people that are willing to put up with it. And especially when one of those growing pains is living up to the expectations that you set for yourself. And last year they won 9 games, and they return a guy who's considered to be a Heisman candidate and all this stuff, right? So they set these high expectations, and they didn't live up to them, not even close. But if you look at Shane and Coach Beamer and the hires that he is capable of making now, even with everything that seemingly wasn't going right, compared to the hires that he was able to make when he first got the job, fresh start. He's going to be here for a while, fresh slate, the whole 9 yards. I mean, that's an indictment on him. I mean, these guys believe in him. It's not like they didn't have other options. It's not like Stan Drayton is just taking a job in Columbia because he didn't have anywhere else to go, Tyler, or Kendall Briles or Randy Clements or Deion Barnes. All these guys can coach in a lot of different places, probably some that are much more stable than this one. But, Coach Beamer was able to get him here. And so I think that says a lot about him. And again, at the end of the day, people love hearing this now, but they love seeing the wins in September, October, November, and so on and so forth. So, they got to put it all together. But overall, I think it's pretty remarkable that he was able to get this much quality on that staff following what was a pretty bad 2025 season.
Again, talking to Jamie Bradford here on the AAA Heat and Air phone lines. And, of course, making the hires was a top priority going into the offseason. All that's done as of now unless somebody else wants to make a move, which hopefully that's not not the case. But then you looked at some of the key players that you needed to return. And we'll get into some of the guys leaving the portal coming up here in a minute. But the real big three that everybody talked about was Lenore Sellers, Dylan Stewart, and Nick Harbor. Now you've got all three of these guys confirmed to come back. And I know there was various reporting, and we kind of talked about Sellers for a couple weeks of trending towards coming back. But, I mean, hats off to Beamer and company for being able to re-secure all three of those guys because I think for a lot of us, we doubted the ability to retain one, if any of them, at certain points during the fall.
Yeah, I mean, those are the headliners, right? I mean, those are going to be the guys that are making, when you look like at the national media, people that are keeping track of this stuff, those are the guys that are the highlights. There's no doubt about that. But I honestly, I think bigger than that. I mean, overall, and I know that they've lost a ton of offensive linemen, and you can argue that whatever you've lost on the offensive line really isn't a loss because that unit just hasn't been very good. You can make that argument. I mean, I think losing Josiah Thompson certainly hurts, to be honest with you, and I could make an argument that losing some of these other guys hurts. But I get it when people are like, no, they weren't any good. If they all leave, they all leave. Just go get some different guys. But overall, I mean, they're retaining a ton of dudes. I mean, they're keeping almost all of their wide receivers. They've kept an excellent group of linebackers. They've got interior guys on the defensive side and Brownlow Dindy and Troy Pikes that are set to be superstars next year. The secondary is in really, really good shape. I mean, they've kept a lot of players. And coming off a 4-8 team, I mean, you look around the country, there's much better football teams out there that lose a ton of good players to the portal after a good year. And this program largely is hanging on to, the large majority of them. And there's still time, obviously, you got 11 more days for people to enter, and maybe that happens. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if a couple of guys dropped in there. But they're going to have a good starting point for most of this football team in the spring because of the guys that they retained.
We'll get into some of that portal movement, including the first commitment out of the portal that we heard, that we learned about last night. Coming up next as the halftime show rolls along, Tyler Head, Jamie Bradford joining me as he does each and every Monday on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines here on The Game. right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head along with you here on your Monday on the game, rolling along as we recap everything that's happened in the past couple weeks for Gamecock sports, particularly when it comes to the transfer portal that is now officially open. We'll get to the Jaden Gibson commit coming up here in just a moment. We're talking, as always, with Jamie Bradford on the AAA Heat and Air phone lines. And, Jamie, you mentioned a moment ago, all the offensive linemen exiting, and half of the guys in the portal now for South Carolina are from that offensive line. Of course, Josiah Thompson being the most polarizing of those, given what he was supposed to be coming out of high school. I think it's a balance of, understanding him, maybe not wanting to come back, but I think there was also, myself included, intrigue of, I wonder what he could have done under the tutelage of a new offensive line coach like Randy Clements. Could he have maybe got the most out of him? Obviously, now we'll never know.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I mean, he was one of the most highly recruited offensive linemen in the country. He was a high school All-American. He was a freshman All-American at South Carolina. And unless you talk to Josiah specifically, I think a lot of us will always wonder. I mean, think about, go back in time and put yourself there in that spot. Josiah Thompson, a left tackle, one of the best left tackles in the country, committed to South Carolina. And he had some wonderful games early on in his career. And honestly, towards the end of this past season, he played better. So do we attribute all of it to poor coaching? How much of it was on Josiah? How much was it on his position coach? Was it on the system? We're all going to have to speculate a little bit. I think it's probably a mixture of all of it. He probably got frustrated at some point in time. And now he's gone. So, I do think that that's a loss. And I do think it's going to be hard to replace a Josiah Thompson. Those guys, big-time left tackles in the portal, number one, they're not a dime a dozen. There's not a lot of them out there. And the ones that are out there, they cost a lot of money. So is there a replacement on this team right now? I don't know. You technically, when you include walk-ons and your incoming players, you actually have 13 offensive linemen right now that you'll be counting on this year. But two of those guys are guys who've battled a ton of injuries since they've been here, and Ryan Brubaker and Marquis Anderson. Is Surratt the guy? Do they think that he's capable of playing left tackle? I don't know. But when you look at it, he certainly, I believe, is a loss, and I think he would have had a much better season next year under this new staff and in this new system. But we won't know. We'll have to figure out who they're going to put there and wish him the best of luck.
And you mentioned, left tackles there. It's not just the left tackle spot. Every spot on the offensive line is tricky to try and fill via the portal because there's just not always going to be the best of the best options available out there. When you look at what Carolina lost, which is 7 of the 9 guys that started games for them this year. So if you say, hey, Surratt's going to return, he'll probably be one of your starting spots, then you're looking to replace somewhere between 2, 3, maybe even 4 new guys starting on your offensive line. There's no guarantee you're going to be able to go out there and find the high-level talent. We've seen plenty of teams like the Colorados and, the early Dion years trying to rebuild an offensive line completely out of the portal and it not going well. There's been some success stories as well, like Vanderbilt, I think Indiana as well, but you just never truly know. It's a fine line you're walking when you're going into the portal looking for that many guys to help fill out your room, potentially as starters.
Yeah, absolutely. The wrench in all of this for the rest of us to kind of sit here and speculate on is the fact that they're going to have an entirely new offensive system, right? And so, the guys that they sign, whoever those guys end up being that they sign out of the portal, we might there's all these rankings and stuff for everybody to kind of follow along with, and that's fine. That's part of the game, and I get it. But that's kind of what we lean on, and we'll lean on some sources, and then they'll get into practice, and we'll lean on some different sources to try to figure out who's what and what they're doing, and how good are they, et cetera, et cetera. But because it's a new system, the evaluation of who they might be looking for in the portal might be much different than what it's been or what the quote-unquote rankings portray. There might be guys in the portal, and I'm sure that there are. I would love to see what that board looks like in the building. I'm sure there's guys in the portal who maybe haven't played a ton somewhere else, but they're perfect for this system. You know, they can come in, and this is something that they're used to doing for whatever reason that is. Maybe they were playing in a program that runs a similar system. They just hadn't gotten on the field yet because they were younger, and the guy in front of them was really, really good. Maybe they come from a high school system that is very similar to this. You know, I don't know. Who knows what those guys are looking at? So, unfortunately, I know people hate hearing things like this because it feels like a lot of times when it's said to us, it backfires. But this is a very important time, I think, to actually trust the coaches. You know, they're new here. The guys that are going to be recruiting that position, like they are new here, and they're looking for certain players. And so I'll just be, you know, regardless of what the rankings say, the portal rankings, all that stuff, I'll be curious to see what talents these guys have and how they fit with this new offensive game plan that's going to be under Coach Briles.
Again, talking to Jamie Bradford here on the AAA Eaton Air Phone Lines, of course, wide receiver. Becomes the first position group to pick somebody out of the portal in Jaden Gibson. 2 spots opened up with Dre Jacobs and Brian Rowe Jr. opting to go into the portal over the course of the past couple weeks. And look, I guess nobody is surprising to go in the portal these days. That's just the nature of college football. I will say, for the fact that Brian Rowe Jr. did come in as a freshman and did contribute the way that he did, I personally was thinking he'd be somebody that would want to hang around, continue to develop. And again, he may have gotten offered a bag of money to go somewhere else. But that one, if anybody, I guess would say is surprising, is maybe towards the top of my list.
Yeah, I thought that too. And then I found out, you know, who his made a little bit more sense. You know, his agent has a few wide receivers. One of them was kind of shopped around. Carolina was in the mix for him last year, and he ended up at Texas A&M. So, you know, I don't. I mean, I'm not blaming it all on like his agent or something like that, but I do think that there is a lot of that going on, and I personally believe that this is a case where that got in the way of Brian Rowe and South Carolina, and he chose to depart and go look for, I don't want to say greener pastures. Maybe it is greener pastures. I don't know, but certainly a different pasture. I was surprised about Dre Jacobs. You know, I really liked that kid. Thought he had a chance to be a superstar here. But, you know, the Gibson commitment is going to be really interesting. He hadn't played football in a couple of years because of, you know, some injuries. But he does have size, right? I mean, he'll be the second biggest or tallest wide receiver on the team behind Nick Harbor as it stands now, unless they sign somebody who is the same height or a little bit taller than him, which gives you a little bit of a different dynamic to Lenore Sellers. The rest of these guys, not that they're short, but they're also not 6'4" and 6'5". And how long does it take him to kind of get back into game shape to play in the SEC with not playing for a couple of years? So there's a question mark around him. He does have, you know, a couple of years still left to play ball. It's not like this is his final year of football. So I think he'll be a contributor at Carolina. I think that's what the hope that everybody has for him. But spring practice will be very important to understand where he is and how far along he has come.
And on that note, you know, talk about him not playing the past couple of years, and we were discussing him earlier, and it's really kind of a high reward, low risk type of thing, because you're not bringing him in saying he has to be your wide receiver number one. You look at that for Nick Harbor, obviously, but if he can come in, be a solid contributor, stay healthy, obviously, and be that second option to give you size on the other side of the field, fantastic. Again, that injury stuff's always going to be in the back of your mind when you talk about him, but you know, he's a 4-star coming out of high school, and there was a lot of belief of what he could have done at Oklahoma had he stayed healthy the past couple of years, and now fingers crossed that can come to fruition here at Carolina. We'll see.
Well, I mean, Tyler, absolutely, and so he's going to go into a room, like if you remember going into, definitely last spring, but going into the fall, right, and all the conversations us on the outside were having about which rooms were the most competitive and which units were, you know, maybe a little bit weaker and stronger. I think the large majority of people believed that the wide receiving core, like that room, was going to be as competitive of a room in the preseason as there was on this team, because they had so many freshmen. I mean, you mentioned Brian Rowe, you had Jayden Sellers in there, you had Malik Clark in there, you had Jordan Gidron and Donovan Murph and Lex Cyrus. Those were all the new guys. And then you had Mazia returning, and you had Vandrevius Jacobs returning, and you had Jared Brown returning, and obviously Nick Harbor and so on and so forth, right? So it was like, all right, well, how some of these freshmen are going to have to separate, and they did. And then, of course, Jaden Sellers comes along late in the season. He maybe ends up being the best one of all of them. Well, I think you can look back at what we were talking about in August and put that conversation regarding the wide receiving core on steroids coming into 2026, because literally almost all those guys are back. And, and now you're going to add a guy who has played high-level football, I know, with injuries, and they're probably going to sign another wide receiver, I'm sure. But once again, you have largely a ton of young guys who are going to be competing for snaps. So as fascinating as it was to follow along with this past year, I think it's going to be even more fascinating when we get into March and April for spring ball. And then clearly when you get into August, there is no portal period this year after this one. This is it. So if these guys are all here through this portal period, these guys are going to be on the team in the fall of 2026, and we'll have to see who separates.
Definitely so. Looking forward to it. Jamie, appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
Feel better, brother. Happy New Year.
All right, I appreciate it. Jamie Bradford there on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour. Crazy weekend in the NFL to wrap up the regular season and set the table for the playoffs. We'll discuss that coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you here on The Game. welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head wrapping things up here on your Monday on the game. That was called last night on NBC. As yes, indeed, the Baltimore Ravens, Tyler Loop specifically, the Baltimore Ravens kicker, missing what would have been a game-winning field goal, not just to win the game, but punch a ticket to the playoffs for the Ravens, as that was for the AFC North on Sunday Night Football. Ravens come up short in what was probably game of the year. And again, a lot's happened in the football world since we were last in here. But that Thursday night game a few weeks ago before Christmas between the Rams and the Seahawks, that seemed like it was going to be game of the year. That was a thrill a minute, crazy comeback, all that kind of stuff. And I think it was outdone last night. And I love the fact that the NFL now positions these divisional games at the very end of the season. Everybody's playing a divisional game in the last week. They have flex scheduling to ensure that the biggest and most important games are put in the best slots on TV. And typically they will have a game on Sunday Night Football that has all the marbles of who's going to make the playoffs and who's going to miss. And that was the case last night for the Ravens and the Steelers. And the game obviously lived up to the hype. Crazy back and forth. It's insane to me how Zay Flowers got wide open to score that touchdown for the Ravens. And then the Steelers immediately respond with the Calvin Austin touchdown after Awuzie, the defensive back for the Ravens, slip. Chris Boswell misses the extra point, something he hasn't done in like 40 years for the Steelers. And it just seems like, oh, that's perfect. The Ravens are going to drive down the field. Isaiah Likely catches that insane 4th and 7. They get set up in field goal range, and then Tyler Loop misses it. Heartbreaker there that could, as of right now, we're almost at 3 o'clock. We've not seen any news on it yet. Could cost John Harbaugh his job, right? Harbaugh is the second longest tenured coach in the NFL behind Mike Tomlin. Won Super Bowl, obviously, 2012 season. You've had multiple Lamar Jackson MVPs, but only a handful of playoff wins and one AFC championship victory to show for it. The people in Baltimore are getting a little bit restless, and we'll see if they decide to make a move. On the other end of things, a team that I don't think anybody expected to be in the playoff mix was the Carolina Panthers. And, well, Dave Canales talks about how they managed to win the NFC South despite not playing on Sunday.
I'm just so excited for Panthers fans everywhere. The neighborhood is crazy. We were yelling from our couch as a family and walked outside where we normally, ride bikes and walk the dogs, and there was just neighbors out in front in the front yards. Everyone was really excited, but really, and also just proud of this team, proud of the coaches, the players, everybody involved. It took the whole season. It took 17 games, capturing opportunities along the way to be in position for this, and we're ready to chase the next championship opportunity in front of us.
Give a lot of credit, right? The Panthers have not been good these past handful of years. They've gone through different coaches. You've had your owner acting out. Bryce Young hasn't looked like the quarterback we thought he was going to be at times. And they finally got it together. Now, yes, they lost on Saturday. Don't forget that. They could have made this real easy if they would have beat the Buccaneers on Saturday. And Dave Canales calls the plays. Got a little too cute down there near the goal line with a flea flicker that ended up costing them a chance at points that ended up being very valuable in what was a 2-point loss on Saturday. But lo and behold, the Atlanta Falcons come in and save the day because by virtue of them beating the New Orleans Saints yesterday, tying for the division lead because of the records overall within the division, that vaulted Carolina to the top because Carolina did sweep the Falcons. Falcons did get a win against Tampa Bay Bucks a couple of weeks ago. So there you go. The Carolina Panthers are officially back in the NFL playoffs as we wrap up a wacky, crazy regular season. And when you look ahead to the playoffs now, wild card stuff, getting rolling this upcoming weekend, you're not going to have the Kansas City Chiefs. You're not going to have the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, for a side of the division in the AFC that routinely you go back to the Patriots dynasty, and where it seemed like if it wasn't the Patriots, it was the Steelers kind of having a stranglehold on that thing that transitioned soon after to, the Chiefs doing what they've done. it's wide open, man. The Broncos are the number 1 seed. Buffalo, always capable with Josh Allen. The Jaguars, what a turnaround for them in year number 1 under Lee and Cohen. Like, a lot of times you feel like you can guess who's going to be the representative in the Super Bowl out of the AFC. This time, I have no idea. I'm very excited to watch Chargers, Patriots. Going to be a really great game coming up on Sunday night. Can the Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin era continue? Not just into next season, but farther in the playoffs. They've once again won 10 games. Mike Tomlin, at least. Aaron Rodgers' first year in Pittsburgh. And what's the future of both of those guys if they lose this weekend? They'll play the Texans on Monday night to wrap up Wild Card Weekend. I don't know. I'm excited to watch it. Should be a lot of fun. And it was certainly a fantastic weekend to wrap up the NFL regular season. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, thank you so much for rolling with the punches of my voice not being where it needs to be. I'm going to hopefully go take care of that at home, and I'll be back in here 18 hours away from now, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Bill Will's back tomorrow at noon, and hopefully I sound a lot better, and we can continue to talk about whatever else is unfolding in the sports world, transfer portal, and all of those things in between. Thank you much, guys, for listening to today's edition of the Halftime Show. I'm Tyler Head. You're on your Monday Halftime Show with Jay and Terry up next here in the game. Tyler right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. It's a new year, but I'm still here to tell you, you always need to be on the lookout for those foundation issues around your home. Those things include cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors and windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you know any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues, and that's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com and let our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist help you out.